Good morning out there, traders. It is March 22nd, 2024, and welcome to the Apteros Daily Market Insight for the ES. We don't have a recap from yesterday, so let's just dive in right into our kind of situation that we have developing for us today. Today's DMI is really derived from our lower time frames, but we have some supporting cast once we get out of a certain area here. So let's talk about what's going on. In this particular zone here, this area, we have dissonance up against two different trade ideas. We have the short-term prior value area, which is bearish in nature right now because we're holding below that value that we built yesterday. And we have another time frame trade idea that is the established what is, trade. That is what's, this neutral area is developed from. So that trade idea is bullish in nature. Our prior value trade is bearish in nature, and these two create dissonance or conflict with one another. Now, in this zone, essentially the edges define these trade ideas, right? So the expectation in dissonance is really that we don't have a clear bias, we don't have a clear edge, so we kind of use price to lead the way. And sometimes, some NADRO students don't even trade in dissonant areas. So because the expectation is usually something a little bit more conflicted within the market nature, so something a little bit more choppy and things like that. Now, that's not always the case. It doesn't always hold true, but that's the expectation from the context. Now, with that in mind, that dissonant zone is an area to definitely be careful and cautious of. But, excuse me, on either side of that, we end up seeing some decent trade ideas from outside of that zone. So our main, kind of situation that we find ourselves in here in terms of developing out scenarios. Scenario one, let's just call it, is the dissonance holds, and we end up finding some chop or some back and forth in here, right? Scenario two is a breakdown of this neutral area. So something like this, where we end up seeing the market push down through it, and we get this trade idea here, and a continuation to the downside. And the furthest we could expect this market to really pull down into is probably that 52-52 zone, 52-44s, somewhere down into here. That would be kind of the overall destination or target for scenario two. Scenario three would be a move up out of that dissonant zone and the retest of this reference here. First target is here, and second target would be a continuation up to the stretch area around 53.32. And that's really the main breakdown of the scenarios for today in terms of what we have setting up. Now, remember, we are still out kind of in open space in terms of where the ES is located. So our risk-reward landscape isn't the best right now, but we do have a couple of trade ideas that are setting up. And the better scenarios in terms of context and weighting are scenarios 2 and 3, because those would actually give us some clarity outside of this dissonant area. Okay? So trade well out there, mind your risk, and pay attention to your process, and let's get after it.